Well, I have something absolutely delightful for you. We've talked about before Kyle Clark, the Colorado news anchor, and his coverage of Lauren Boebert, but I have not seen a face-to-face confrontation with the two of them until now, and this is fantastic. Devastating for Lauren Boebert. And I'll actually walk you through where this comes from. Is Lauren Boebert did two different debates in recent days. And at these debates, Kyle Clark was at least at the one that I'm going to play clips from at the beginning for you. And he confronted her on the Beetlejuice debacle. Now, I know what you're thinking. Is that really the most pressing thing? Well, other topics are discussed, as I'll show you. Other embarrassing moments play out for Lauren Boebert. But this one I was glad to see because Kyle Clark points to and doesn't let up on the part of that event with Lauren Boebert that I think is the most indicative of her low character. And we'll talk about that as we go through this. But please make sure if you're enjoying this content, you click the subscribe button to help us continue to grow. And if you want to become a member to get the daily bonus show, you can do so by clicking the join button below. Here it is.
That was about the softest reference that he could have made, but do you want to talk about the theater thing?
Sure. So, Kyle, I certainly have owned up to my night out in Denver. I've gone on that public apology tour, and I'm grateful for the mercy and grace that has been shown. But I'm not going to continue to live life in shame and be beat up by this. And, I would like to go back to my legislative record for just a second.
We're not going to do that. You had plenty of time to answer the question. You chose not to. That's fine. I just want to make sure.
I'll have more time.
And you have apologized for the theater incident.
I certainly have.
And I just want to make sure. Did you apologize for the behavior that went on with you and your date or the vaping?
Kyle,
or did you apologize for lying to voters about what you did that night and the disrespect that you showed to service workers that night? What specifically were you apologizing for?
I don't believe there was disrespect. There were things that were absolutely taken out of context.
There's video of your interactions with service workers. I'm asking,
right,
are you apologizing for the lying to voters? It's been reported that I flipped someone off, and I did not. So, I mean, I think it's been very mischaracterized. I'm apologizing for you, Kyle Clark, getting footage and releasing that. And people seeing this in a very private moment. Certainly. It was very important to figure out whether you were telling the truth
you just had
or
an
whether a
interview
public
recently with
agency was lying
CityCast
about your
Denver.
conduct.
You just
Either
had
way was
an
very
interview with
important for
CityCast Denver, and you were saying how disgusting it is to record someone without their knowledge.
Let's talk about the use of earmarks in Congress.
You did that very same thing and released it.
Wow. And I'm going to show you a second moment where he brutalizes her further. But the notable part I was so happy that finally he brought up was, okay, the most salacious, I think what gets the most amount of attention is that Lauren Boebert was getting a little handsy with her date at this event in the theater. I'd show the footage, but then these videos get age restricted, so I don't want to do that. And so she was being a little funky, right, with her date. That's one thing, and out in public, there's children around. That's definitely inappropriate. But I think what's even more indicative of her character, rather than just a lack of social awareness, is her being so disrespectful to the workers there. It takes a certain type of person with a certain type of low character to treat people who are just doing their job as she did. We have footage of her flipping off the workers, as we've reviewed in the past, and we have reporting about her saying, "Do you know who I am?" to the service workers whenever they had to kick her out of the theater. Not their rules. There's rules about this sort of behavior in such a venue. You can't vape. You can't do certain things with your partner, and you can't yell after being requested to stop. And that's what she did. She continued after being warned at intermission, and then she was kicked out. And the workers were just enforcing the rules of this theater. And she chose to let out her own insecurity, embarrassment, whatever, on those workers. And that's indicative of who she is. People who are willing to do that and then say, "Do you know who I am?" definitely shows just how little you care about the people around you. And that is why I'm happy Kyle Clark brought that up. Not to mention the embarrassingness of what she was doing in that theater, all of the different events. Here's the next moment.
We did have a very close election, but we also had 50,000 Republicans not show up to vote. I do not believe me being here is making this a vulnerable seat. This is a huge move for conservatives in Colorado.
So just to be clear, Ms. Boebert, you blame Republican voters for the fact that you nearly lost a safe seat and not your own conduct.
When 50,000 Republican voters do not show up and think that their vote does not matter, that does make an impact on elections.
Yeah, so really good to see not only the confrontation over her Beetlejuice behavior, but also about her trying to sort of avoid personal responsibility, as Republicans used to identify with, by saying it's really Republicans, the Republican voters who chose not to come out and vote for me, that caused this race to be so close, which in a literal sense, every person who doesn't go out and vote, doesn't vote for you, is impacting the outcome of the election. But she should be taking personal responsibility and thinking, why is it that I alienated moderate Republicans and caused this last race to be so close? And why is it that right now it seems I'm alienating so many moderate Republicans? Maybe it's the election denying, the behavior of Lauren Boebert. As Kyle Clark said, her conduct that's causing that, and she should do some introspection instead of blaming Republican voters. But I will say right now, and this is a really good bit of news, it looks like even her shift into this district might be bad for her, even if she gets through this Republican primary, and that's the debate that we're watching, a Republican primary debate, because Ike McCorkle, who would be her Democratic challenger, he commissioned a poll, and the poll revealed he was leading by 14 points, which, again, he commissioned it, but looks like even in this more conservative district, Lauren Boebert would have trouble given how unpopular she is. And I do want to say as well, one of the things in the first clip that you watched that was going through my head as I was watching the second one was Lauren Boebert pretending like Kyle Clark did something by releasing private footage of her, and she was doing something that was private, it was personal. It was personal, all right, and it involved privates, but it was not something that was in private. It was out in a theater where there's security cameras, so you can just hush up with the grandstanding about something being private. Goodness gracious, here's a moment from this debate.
Now I'm ready to stand for all of us in Congress. Voters face a clear choice. We've seen how Lauren Boebert would represent us, abandoning her neighbors in CD3, missing key votes while chasing cameras, and being in the center of DC drama instead of delivering real solutions for the people. I'm running because we deserve a better choice. I'm the conservative fighter that you can be proud of, that will focus on solutions to securing our border and revitalizing our economy. You get to decide between more dysfunction and division or new principled leadership that will unite us and get our economy back on track.
So the sort of format of this entire debate was everyone going after Lauren Boebert, which is fantastic to see, because she, in this Republican primary, is thought of as the front runner, even if in some polls she's not, just because she's Lauren Boebert. She's the most prominent. She's a current Congresswoman, so people are really trying to knock her down to get themselves as the Republican nominee. And that's what you're seeing here. And it was great points being made there by that candidate, which is to say, Lauren Boebert, for political reasons, she denies this, but obviously it's what it's about, abandoned her third district where she currently represents to try to run a district that would be more advantageous to her, more conservative, because she saw the writing on the wall in Colorado's third. And that is indicative of someone who cares about themselves and not the people they serve. And then, on top of that, she has shown with her actions, like missing votes because of whatever she was up to and running up the stairs and always trying to get sort of the viral moments that excite her base, but not actually, as we're talking about earlier, accomplishing things for those that she serves. So interesting to see. Then you have even more of this Boebert bashing.
So for Miss Boebert, how many bills did you prime sponsor? I said 38 I prime sponsored, not co-sponsor, because you can co-sponsor post facto. Anybody can put their name on a bill after it passes. How many bills did you prime sponsor in the U.S. Congress that actually were signed by the President of the United States?
So thank you so much, Richard. It's interesting that you're touting the legislation that you have passed. You also say that you are a no-nonsense conservative. Well, I think the voters back home should know that a no-nonsense conservative should not have a failing Liberty score. We have the Independent Institute who scores representatives for their legislative record. And if you are not voting how you campaign, well, then you get a negative impact. And I'm the only person.
Would you like to answer the question, or would you like to talk about Liberty scores? You can answer the question, ma'am. It's okay.
Will. So,
I asked a very specific question. Please answer.
One of my favorite pieces of legislation that has been signed into law is my Pueblo Jobs Act that creates at least 1,000 jobs in Pueblo, Colorado. We worked to incorporate the BRAC process. So nearly $7 billion in infrastructure would not be bulldozed and go to waste. But there are also many other pieces of legislation that I've passed through the House. And
it doesn't matter if it's passed through the House. If the president doesn't sign it, ma'am,
government, and I'm not going to compromise my principles to just pass a bill that does not honor.
I would give you one more opportunity if you would like to answer his question, which is the number of bills you've prime sponsored that have been signed by the president.
So my Pueblo Jobs Act has been signed into law.
A number, please.
That is one.
Got it.
Before I tell you why that clip is so funny, this whole dynamic is fantastic. Good that they're calling out she's not getting things done. Will it make a difference? I don't know. People really do like, apparently, in MAGA world, the stunts and the culture wars and all that. But she says the Pueblo Jobs Act is her favorite, the favorite one that has been signed into law. It also just so happens to be the only one, the only one that she's successfully seen signed into law. So, yeah, it's sort of like whenever I say to my sister, "You're my favorite sister." She's my only sister, but she's my favorite, for sure. Here's more.
90% of the people out there don't know any of the candidates, and that includes Lauren, which is a surprise, which I guess not, because she's not really part of this district or have a connection. But what worries me is because I said earlier I do feel the seat's in jeopardy. The reason why is because unaffiliates and even moderate-leaning constituents do not know you, don't like you. And are you ever going to make an attempt to talk to anyone outside the Republican Party?
Don't know me or don't approve of me, because those are two very different things that you're saying.
Okay, so basically it's actually it's one and the same, because they don't know you, and the ones that do know you.
It sounded like the question was, are you going to talk to anybody outside the Republican Party?
Absolutely, and I do on a regular basis.
So that one I just play for you because it's hilarious hearing her opponent say, you know, moderate Republicans, many of them don't know you or they don't like you. They don't know you, but when they do learn of you, they don't like you. And Lauren Boebert obviously did not like that one. And then here's a moment. And interestingly enough, this is Michael Lynch. We talked about him. He was is a state Colorado representative, and he was caught drunk driving, tried to hide it. It got revealed. We covered that interview. Super stressful interview to watch. But here he's also confronting Lauren Boebert.
Congresswoman Boebert,
I would love to see, Congresswoman, your legislation that you've done to do this. What is it? Because you have passed nothing.
We are in divided government, and I have passed legislation out of the House of Representatives. I work in the House of Representatives, not in the Senate, and I'm not in the executive branch. But I have passed legislation to secure our border.
No legislation.
Yes, I have. And to defund sanctuary cities. I have passed over 70 amendments to the House floor, a process that I fought to make available in the House of Representatives, something that hasn't happened in over a decade.
Because we don't want to have
Mr. Lynch, thank you very much. Mr.
boxing match here.
Mr. Holtorf, there's a question coming for you.
You know, dumpster fire is the term that comes to mind watching this. These are the options. They're not sending their best, the Republican Party, as Trump might say about something else. And it's pretty painful to watch because Lauren Boebert is obviously disastrous. But knowing about some of these other options in the Republican Party, Ike McCorkle would be the better option, the Democratic candidate. But in the Republican Party, there are also a lot of bad options, which is pretty brutal. But again, it's so interesting watching them argue in a way that to me doesn't strike doesn't compel the hearts and minds of MAGA voters. How MAGA is this district? We'll have to see. But I've watched as MAGA has caused the Republican Party, and all of you have watched, I should say, I've discussed often, the way that the Republican Party has abandoned policy because of MAGA's control over it. And so it would not shock me if these attacks against Lauren Boebert don't actually move the needle within the Republican Party on her not being a good policymaker or policy implementer. Here's one more moment.
And I have been fighting
on these issues every step of the way to limit the reckless spending, to reduce inflation, to get American energy development, and to secure our border. I don't just talk the talk, I deliver for Colorado, and it's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so she says she's fighting on the border and on energy production and whatever else. Just to say again, she is, to her credit, fighting when it comes to border and border policy. Just so happens she's on the side of fighting against solutions like the bipartisan border deal. And then on the energy production point, I said to someone recently, what is Biden supposed to do to make these people happy? Honestly. What is he supposed to do to impress the American people? This insanely successful legislative record. And then on energy production, I talked to people who think he shut down oil production, and oil production has been hitting records under his administration or during his time in office. Record high domestic oil production. So all these talking points have now ventured so far from the facts, and that really is frightening and irritating to observe. Let me know what you thought of that debate and specifically Kyle Clark's clash with Lauren Boebert.